When is the last time you have heard anyone speak about anorexia or bulimia?
So us even talking about this right now, we're like a part of the awareness problem.
Hey, if you throw up your food, you're bound to lose weight. Yeah. All right, sweet.
It's an effective form of weight loss.
Everyone gets their own personalized bulimia plan
Yeah.
based on the questionnaire.
Yeah. What if you just had like an amount of bulimia you're allowed to have? You're like, hey, you get 3 purges a week.
And like to be real alpha, you just do shots until you puke.
Ooh! We were talking about a week ago, and we were talking about things that, you know, were kind of on the top of our minds, and I had brought up anorexia and bulimia. And I had this whole thought process that basically the long and short of it in my head was that transgenderism is the current anorexia, in the sense that anorexia was a popular thing among teenage girls that was basically spread in friend groups like a social, almost like a mind virus.
Okay.
And the way that I quantified that was that the virus is now like kind of out of its extinct, basically. Like it kind of went through the population and now it's not there anymore.
Not the virus, you mean anorexia.
Anorexia
Okay.
and bulimia.
Gotcha.
They are like non-existent. I don't see. When is the last time you have heard anyone speak about anorexia or bulimia? I mean, I don't think I've heard the term in 10 years, aside from when I just said it right now. I don't.
No, I don't
when's the
think
last time
you're
you've
wrong.
heard it? Like it used to be like this thing when we were in school, like in the 90s and I think even early 2000s. That was something that was like a big problem. Like we all knew somebody that had that.
You mean it was portrayed as a big problem, or you actually personally knew a lot of people that were throwing
I mean, we
up
knew
on-
people that were throwing up and stuff. Yeah.
I suspected an ex-girlfriend was, because I think when you make yourself throw up, because just to compare, anorexia is when you just don't eat. Bulimia is when you eat and then throw up. Yeah. But yeah, because I think when women throw up, it does something to their two front teeth,
the acid,
right?
Well, the acid will erode their teeth if they do it enough.
So I think an
know.
ex-girlfriend, when we were younger, I thought she was
Could you
doing
imagine that? Like, I don't throw up often, but when I do, it's just like, oh my God, I got to get this out. But doing it like on a daily basis, that would be impossible.
I think they do it multiple times, but
all that
yeah,
stomach acid just sitting in your mouth. Oh.
But don't you ever eat a bunch of bad food and your stomach just does not feel right? I mean, it probably would feel better if you threw up. So I could see if you just purged one time just to make yourself feel a little better because you're so...
but that isn't the purpose.
But then it becomes addicting, I guess is what I'm saying, right? You do it once and then you're like, oh,
it's an effective form of weight loss.
But it's not healthy.
I'm not saying it's healthy. The gals were on to something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the point is, I don't think that I've seen it even as a discussion. And I think that part of it is that it's not in the discussion. It's not in the lexicon of today. Like, the reason that it doesn't exist is because people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, Fully Loaded Tobacco-Free Chew. Check out the description of this video or the show notes to get 20% off your next order.
If you talk about something all the time and it's constantly in front of your face, i.e. transgenderism today, then it becomes part of the lexicon. And then these kids, it's like a way for them to like have an identity.
Yes.
See, I think you guys have done like a little bit of research on the topic.
I have not.
Okay. Because I was more thinking when you brought it up as a topic that the overall percentage of people that might be anorexia or like being like just not eating or throwing up their food, bulimia style, that it's kind of about the same percentage-wise,
No.
but we just don't talk about it as much.
I don't
anymore.
actually know the stats.
I looked up the stats, and it has been. I just looked at a quick graph. Anorexia and bulimia have been increasing because it went from 1990 to 2019 or something like that, and it has been on a steady incline. Excuse me.
Why is everybody so heavy?
So it hasn't been declining. So
That's interesting.
Is this overall like percentage based or just the population's growing? So naturally,
I
there's
don't
going
know.
to be.
Yeah, I didn't look at I just looked at the overall graph real quick, and that was it. But I did see it jumped from, I don't know, something like 9 million to like 12 million or.
God bless them.
Yeah. So it was going up. But
Huh.
So you looked into this.
yeah, when we started, we talked about it in text a little bit, and I was like, okay, let me look into this. And I came across an article about bulimia specifically. So in the 70s, early 70s, there was a doctor, and he had a case where a girl came in. She said she was anorexic, but she didn't fit the description. So her visuals looked perfectly fine, like, you know, opposite of what someone who's anorexic looks like. And he had about 30 cases over the next 7 years that were just those oddballs. It's like, you're not fitting the description of what anorexia is. So for the next 7 years, he kind of noticed these, and he eventually wrote in some psychology journal about these weird cases that they're having, or that he's seen. And it was one of those studies where, you know, or a journal where only people in the community, like scientists, are going to be looking at this kind of thing. But the University of Chicago got hold of it, I want to say in the early 80s or so, and they wrote some press release for it. And when they did this, there were a lot of women's magazines that started picking up this, hey, we're seeing some more people becoming bulimic. So with all these magazines starting to pick it up, they started to see a spike in developed countries. So United States, I mean, these cases skyrocketed. United States, Europe, China, all across the world started skyrocketing.
Well, they knew it was an
bulimia.
option all of a sudden.
So it started to become, they didn't know it was a social contagion. That's what they now think it is. And here's what they thought. They were like, well, how come this didn't exist before this, right? It's like, what happened? And they tied it back. I mean, only a couple of years ago, they tied it back to this article, or this paper this guy wrote in this journal about how he has these weird cases. Now, here's the strange thing. It's like, how did this just
this article, like advertised? Like, because back then it was tough to come by information, not like today where it's just like, hey,
they put it in a major newspaper or something.
Yeah, it's not like today, but think about it. Like these women's magazines, like Home and Garden, things like that. When they start, they're looking for any kind of, you know, article or topic they can write about. So they did this, and it started to blow up. Now, here was the thing. Another scientist, she was like, okay, what's going on? Has this happened across the world? Or did this happen across the world? And so she looked at all these developed countries, saw this spike in bulimia cases, and then she was like, okay, well, let me look at underdeveloped countries. So she specifically went to Fiji, and she went to Fiji, and there were no cases in Fiji of bulimia in young women until I think it was 1990 or 1995. Okay, then skyrocketed. I'm talking they went up to like 11% of adolescent girls, and then it jumped up to like 29% and eventually 45%.
Jesus.
Here's what happened in 1990 or 1995. No, it was 1990. Here's what happened in 1990. They got their first television in Fiji. The island of Fiji got their first television. So they were exposed to shows like 90210, Xena Warrior Princess, and like a lot of, you know, cultural shows. And if they're talking about this social or this bulimia, right, it infects the mind of those young women. And the women in Fiji, 80% of them who said that they were bulimic, they said that they diagnosed themselves based on these shows that they saw. So
So they came up with the idea of like, hey, I want, like, they have an image issue, whatever it might be. Like, I want to throw this food up so I don't necessarily like become fat or whatever it might be. So they already were bulimia, and they just didn't even know it existed or what the definition was.
No,
they got the idea to start.
They got the idea, and that's the whole social contagion thing.
They
right?
know it. They now know it's an option.
Yeah.
I think is a better way to describe that.
So whether it's consciously or subconsciously, and that's the one thing this article said is, you know, it can still affect you. Now, the guy who wrote the article, he was like, okay, how do we fight against this then? Well, okay, let me go back. It's not, and he was trying to pin not the blame, or trying to figure out what caused this. And it's not necessarily media. What it turns out it is awareness. So he started to go to other scientists, or this girl was a psychologist, and she dealt with the bulimia issue. Now she kind of helps. She runs support groups and things like that. And she was saying how, you know, she's seen these support groups really help people with bulimia, because she used to be a part of that group, and she says it helps them. But then on the other hand, it also hurts them, according to another psychologist. And the reason for that is because of awareness. So it's almost like because you're making more people aware of the problem, even if you're trying to help, you can be a part of the problem.
Sure.
So it's like, what's the solution? And what they essentially said is, once the cat's out of the bag, the cat's out of the bag. You can't put it in. You almost have to accept the fact that you're going to have some people that make it through, and then other people who get on board with feeling like they're bulimic. That's how these social contagions work.
Yeah.
Is essentially you can't put it back. You just have to manage it and hope for the best, you know. But they did say even these support groups helped. But the problem with that is you start to get very unhealthy competition, if you will, right, between the people, to where it's okay, we're going to try to start eating healthier than that unhealthy, you know, because we're bulimic. So we're going to eat healthier, keep our food down, things like that. But then it starts to kind of take a turn for the worse for some of the people in these support groups. So, but it's an awareness problem. So us even talking about this right now, we're like a part of the awareness problem, if you will, right? But it's like you can't not talk about certain things.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you manage that?
Yeah, it's like anything like opioids or whatever. Marijuana, as we were a kid, a DARE program. How many kids were like, I didn't even know that existed. And
Right.
Why are all these why are the high school kids doing this?
Yeah.
Man, that's intriguing. I want to do it. Yeah, there's no perfect
it's,
solution.
It's honestly like it's a lot of everything. It's like race is the same. Like it's like if you quit just making it about everything all the time, like people would not make such a big deal about it all the time.
There are going to be
so many things that are in that vein where it's like once you just constantly are talking and bringing it up, and it is like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a sense, like because you're going to, for whatever reason, some people are just so susceptible to these kind of pushes in that direction. A little suggestion, some people are so suggestible, and for whatever reason it's like they just have an uptake of whatever that idea is.
In like the quick fix, everyone's looking for shortcuts. Like when it comes to women and dieting, like in our lifetimes, I mean, I have sisters and whatnot, whether or not it was, I think in the 90s, the Atkins was a big deal, and there's these keto diets. How many of those that were like, this is the bulletproof diet to make your image look good, and then like 5-10 years later, it's like, no, you can't, because you're going to be lacking XYZ in terms of vitamins or nutrition, and it's shot down. But there's women across the country, and this is being advertised. It's spreading like wildfire. They'll all jump on this one diet together. So I can get it. Like, if they get introduced to this option to just, hey, if you throw up your food, you're bound to lose weight.
Yeah.
All right, sweet.
And then you can just get dentures in your worst case. They probably get like esophagitis and stuff, too, because of all the stomach acid.
Is that throat cancer?
It can develop into that, just inflammation of their esophagus.
Just because acid constantly
it doesn't
coming
belong
up and
there.
Yeah.
So eventually, that can turn to esophageal cancer, but it's probably a long-term thing. I mean, you might look really good for a long time. You know what I mean? Like they might be really thin and look really good, and then like,
could you imagine like
dentures?
Being like, man, that girl's hot, and like hooking up with her and just tasting like stomach acid.
Oh God.
Yeah, I don't know how good that would be. I mean, it's not like bulimia is funny, but I do think it's a pretty good diet.
Yeah, great for
Here's
you.
a question: Can you be healthily bulimic? Like maybe,
no, probably not.
Maybe do it once a month.
But at least you're not overweight. I mean, you're never going to deal with type 2 diabetes.
Basically, it's like
you can eat whatever you want, right?
Yeah, no, you have free range. It's the perfect diet.
I wonder if there's partial bulimics, like where they'll be like,
Just
all right,
throw
I'm
up the
gonna
bad meals.
Yeah, but
That's a great idea.
I actually don't hate that idea.
I love that idea.
Thanksgiving dinner, you just like gorge yourself, and it's just like
Let's
it's
go
a
throw
holiday.
up.
It's once a year.
What if you just had like an amount of bulimia you're allowed to have? You're like, hey, you get 3 purges a week. That'll be our diet. The alpha hour diet. What you do is you puke. You only get 3 a week, though.
I think it's too much.
3 a week?
3 weeks too much.
All right, let's give them 2.
No, 3 a year.
What?
that's not gonna do anything.
No, we want to keep them thin. They're going to have, let's just say you got, for the sake of argument, we're going to say there's 20 meals in a week. One day a week you eat 2 and not 3. 3 of those you get a cheat on. So we're giving you 15% cheat rate. So you're allowed to cheat on 15% of your meals.
Yeah, and you'll probably pick your weekend fatty,
Yeah.
overindulging meals.
Yeah.
15 a week. how many calories do you think you eat a meal, so we can calculate this in calories, and then maybe we can project it out to the year to figure out how many pounds they're saving.
Yeah, you could make a little calculator and be like, hey, what'd you have? And then like it would add it up over the week, the month, the year, and you'd be able to say
3
like
meals if it's your like
if it's big meals,
Yeah,
you
you're
could be in the 2,000 a piece.
I was
If you
thinking
went
even
nuts.
No
more.
way, don't you? No, aren't you only supposed to eat?
It's like
Yeah,
2,000,
but go to like
3,000 a day.
McDonald's, man. I'm saying like this guy goes to
Like a
McDonald's.
Big
Yeah,
Mac
that's true.
meal's like 1,100 by
Yeah.
itself.
They're eating like a couple hungry
if not
mans.
more.
Yeah,
For
like
sure.
no, down in like a Big Mac meal and like a McFlurry, and then then it's like, hey, delete button,
Yeah.
and hey,
Or like-
welcome to the Alpha Diet. We just fixed your weight problem. And I think if you
The
did it
problem
3
is,
times a
like-
week, you'd probably mitigate a lot of the, bad negatives like the tooth decay and that kind of stuff. I mean, it might eventually catch up.
We can make a product for that. We can make like a, I don't know,
That's
like,
like
a tooth
15%.
defender.
Like a very
where they-
alkaline thing. Like you
Yeah,
prep for it. You're
they
like,
throw
hey,
something on it and then they throw up. That way it's like
Ooh,
it's like
I
a
like
shield.
that.
It's the tooth shield.
and like you could almost make them drink something just a little bit alkaline to like coat their throat in prep for the purge. Like, hey, that's part of our diet. Like we sell you the alkaline drink that you take right before. It's like a thick milky drink.
We'd have to
You
test
take it and like that's part, like every month we ship
Yeah.
it to you.
There need to be something. Otherwise, this would almost become like another version of a butthole. You're releasing so much waste.
It's just 3 times a week.
Slowly, your throat would become like your colon if you're constantly like dealing with getting rid of waste.
I don't know if that's how it works, but I get where you're going.
So
Isn't that a South Park episode? They like eat through their butt and poop through their mouth.
the human caterpillar. Or,
It's one of those
human
South Park
centipede?
episodes. They I think they eat through their butt and poop through their mouth. But I don't hate this as a.
So, but
as a
we have
business.
to keep the amount that people eat under the limit to where there's a line to where you're bulimic now. So we have to test out to see what's the amount that you can do. How many
We should
meals
look
can you
that
throw
up. We should look that up.
So where it
How many
won't
times
have-
a week do you puke to become bulimic? I don't know if there's a hard number. Yeah, it'd be cool because then we could just set it right below that. Like if it's 4, we'd be like 3. Not bulimic.
Not bulimic.
You're just on a diet.
This is a diet.
Yeah, you're just on a diet. It's a really good diet. Find me a better diet.
You can
I don't know.
eat
If
whatever
you
you
force
want.
Whatever you
yourself to
want.
throw up at all within 7 days, I think you're at least categorized as partial bulimic.
That's where I think we go with like a serbavipicac, something to induce.
I don't even know what that is.
That's something that will induce vomiting.
Okay.
So just that's part of the kit. That's part of the kit. We give them a little serbavipicac. They know, hey, all right, I'm gonna vomit. It's all part of the thing.
Give them an Alpha Hour shirt to put on while they're doing it.
Yeah. Ooh, and we can make it like stain proof or something, or like make it already look like vomit.
We'll just make it plastic so they can just like hop in the shower and just.
What if it like had like it looked like vomit, like the shirt, like tie dye,
Actually, love that.
like
idea.
it's like a vomit shirt, and like so even if you got some vomit on this shirt, number one, it doesn't even really affect you negatively, but it's almost just like, hey, like this is part of it. Like I'm here. I did my alkaline drink, the Serbavipicax next. I got my vomit-looking shirt on, and you could go right out. Like, say you got some on there, you just wipe it off, and you just go right out and keep doing your stuff.
Every time I puke like on accident, it's usually because like I'm overindulging with alcohol and doing shots. We could just make it whatever you eat your meal, and like to be real alpha, you just do shots until you puke.
And you'd feel like crap after though.
I think you pretty much will puke up all the
Yeah, I
alcohol.
think you'll purge it all, right?
The other one is a gallon of milk.
So you're eating and you're getting like.
If you do a gallon of milk, that's a lot of milk.
That's a lot of milk.
But if you do a gallon of milk, you will puke it up.
Isn't that another thing? It's impossible to drink a gallon of milk.
Yeah,
without
yeah,
puking?
yeah. You will puke
Oh,
it.
that was your point.
Yeah.
Not the alcohol.
So, Sean, you're saying, let me understand this. You're saying eat all the food you want and then start taking shots?
Yeah, they like to drink too. They kind of go hand in hand.
And it's all coming back up.
Well, maybe we give them options. Like maybe like in our, you go to our website and it's like, hey, how do you want to lose weight? Mm-hmm. And it's like, hey, are you a 2-a-week person or a 3-week person? And then it's like, do you like alcohol? Mm-hmm. Do you like hard alcohol? We have just the solution for you, and we ship them like really shitty Russian vodka, and like they got to just pound it until they vomit.
Like mine's like, I used to love Jack, and then I had a bad experience with whiskey. now if I just do one shot of Jack, it's like already like, oh my gosh, like I can only do like Jameson and other types.
Well, maybe that's part of the questionnaire. Like
Yeah.
when we do the initial fill out, like have you ever had food that made you really sick?
Like our
or
friend,
drinks.
DR. He drank that whole bottle of Jaeger, and now he can't drink Jaeger anymore.
Yeah, this might be a great way to like have a shortcut to the vomiting.
Yeah.
Now they could put their fingers down their throat, and I think you can induce it. But we want to get it all out. We want to have a no-calorie meal. So I think if we could get it all up, I'd feel better about the diet.
What is the time period that it usually takes for your stomach
It
to actually...
varies so much. That's what's tricky. You could have, it depends on the meal. It depends on the amount of stomach acid you have. It depends on the gut motility. It depends on time of day. It depends on a lot of factors. And that's something we can definitely look into for the gals so we can make sure that, hey, when you eat, we want you to do it at this time. And, so you're going to have a maximum purge.
Yeah, because when this was a big deal, now I think, like, back to movies I watched, like, they would have situations with bulimia, and I just had this vision of this girl, like, just shoving donuts in her mouth because she was, like, kind of borderline anorexic and then bulimic on the side, so it would be, like, not eating, and then something like she had a breakdown, a tough day, and she just, like, ate a whole dozen donuts, and then immediately it was, like, she ran in the bathroom and was like, oh, and got it all out. But it was, like, instantaneous. It wasn't like I'm going to feel full for a couple hours and sit back and watch TV. It was like immediately she regretted it or whatever, just felt the need to
once you've chewed it and tasted it, I feel like you've hit the kind of satisfaction portion of it. It's not like the digestion is satisfactory to you. So yeah, I mean, I would say, hey gals, like eat quick, really enjoy your meal, but then like right when it's done, let's go. Let's go get it out. It's time to lose weight.
Yeah, you gotta do it fast.
Yeah, it's like, hey, the diet
out.
starts now. We could even have that like a timer or something. Like, hey, the diet starts right now. Like motivational speeches and stuff. Like, come on, puke, get it out. This your body's gonna look so good tomorrow.
And if you can do it with your friends, it makes it more acceptable too. So we can sell like party packs,
Yeah.
party packs of like outfits and
everyone likes doing things with their friends.
the purging party pack.
Well, and that also
Everyone
gets
gets their own personalized bulimia plan
Yeah.
based on the questionnaire.
Yeah. But you know what's nice too is that then that eliminates some of the stigma that we're seeing around bulimia, which is a shame. But that's what we're out here to change.
Well, we can sell it.
No, but when your friends are doing it with you, it's kind of like, oh, well, she's doing it. Like Becky, Becky's looks so great. Like, what diet are you on? And she's like, oh, I'm on the Alpha Maximum Purge diet. And she's like, wait, what's that? And she's like, tells her about it. And it's like, oh my God, like you're losing weight like that? It's like, yeah, 2-3 purges a week.
I like it.
Go to this website, sign up. And they have a personalized plan. Becky, you love, gin. So we're going to do gin.
All right, but okay, so let's get back to the real bulimia talk. But it makes me think that, as you guys were saying before, that
all these girls around the country circling on the calendar. Today's my purge day. I get to indulge. All right, sorry.
We're messing up the social contagion. We are the problem. But yeah, there are so many things in society to where it can start a social contagion. Like,
Yeah.
Your mindset has to do with so much of it. And what are you allowing yourself to bring into your brain?
Well, and it changes dramatically with society itself. So like things that were wildly unacceptable 20 years ago were like fine now. And 40 years ago, if you could do it in like 20-year periods, you would probably see like just this acceptable, like it wasn't acceptable in 1920 to like go outside your house in your pajamas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like now it's like if you're not in your pajamas, you're a weirdo.
Hey, I don't have a problem with yoga pants if a girl wants to wear yoga pants.
No, I don't either. Especially if she's on the right diet.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? That does, like, the society itself just kind of adjusts over time. And so things that were unacceptable way back when are now acceptable. And so then these things can kind of take hold.
We also have to make sure, kids are impressionable. Like, kids are very impressionable. And I think any adult thinking back to when they were younger, it was like...
No, you think you're a moron.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you think you're so smart. That's what... When you're talking about the whole transgender thing, it was making me think how they're doing some of these sex changes, and I'm like, what adult is letting that happen?
I know.
Like, they're not even... Are you not realizing how stupid you were when you were young?
All the mistakes
the question I
you
have
make
when
you're
that comes
15.
up is like, how do you guys know anyone that has that situation.
I don't know anyone who's done it surgically, but like
when it comes to like hormone blockers and this and that,
there's a center. They just created a center. So we're in Akron, Ohio. At Akron Children's Hospital, they have a center for gender affirmment or whatever the hell it's called. But they've just made a center for it there. And this isn't like a massive population. So, I mean, there's enough that they would build a center. And they're wildly profitable because a lot of these things aren't covered by insurance.
Whenever capitalism is involved, it can go.
I'm not a big fan of it. I'm saying there's a reason they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to
because that's the thing I always related to, like, who do I, like, it's not like I know a ton of people.
There's people in my neighborhood. There's 2 people in my neighborhood that are.
Is it just like, do you look at it as like this kid's just being silly and letting like all this noise get into their head and it's gonna pass, or like are the parents actually like, okay, entertaining?
Yeah,
is this who you really are?
The one that I know that lives right by me is the parent has like changed the kid's name and lets the person dress a certain way. 13, if I had to guess. I think she's a few years older than my daughter.
but if somebody wants to, I think there's a fine line between that and changing, like going under the knife and surgery
even
will change something.
Even the puberty blockers, because that can cause that's still you're arresting development of a child, and you really don't know what that's going to do.
I guess it just mean nice.
Any medical interventions, whether
That's
that be surgery or.
So I was telling him
that.
yesterday, like, even on like mainstream radio, like there was this ad, like I'm like, they're dedicating like 45 seconds, 60 seconds to this guy going on this rant about like certain administration like allowing this to happen and puberty blockers and this and that, like girls trying to get them on pills to help them grow facial hair, and then they want our kids to be sterile and all this stuff. And I'm just like, is this that actually big of a deal that you need a radio ad for mainstream? Or, like, you're just planting the seed and like so many this. I don't want to go to the radio station,
it's
but I'm like,
not out there. It's
what
not
is happening.
I mean, if they're that's my point. If they're building a gender clinic at a not large city, like it certainly exists, even in our little area, and we're not in like a hyper, left-wing area. Like, so it exists here. So I think it is that social contagion aspect to that also, where it's like it gives them an identity, and I'm sure there's so many factors that go into this. But again, look at 20 years ago. This wasn't a thing in school. And now, in the last few years, it is. I mean, that's the thing. So let's just say it's not a massive thing right now versus what it was 20 years ago. It's probably 4,000% increased. You know what I mean? It went from almost no one ever heard of it to like someone that lives by me has the problem.
I just know there's going to be in 20 or 30 years, there's going to be a right side of history and a wrong side of history.
Probably.
And what I think about is when these kids, when they get older, when they're in 20 years, when they're called 30, 35, are they going to look back and be like, what the fuck were those adults? Like, why did they let me do this to myself?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The physical changes. And I think
at some point you got to be the adult.
Yes, there's going to be a.
It's like getting a tattoo when you were 16.
There's going to be a right and wrong side.
There's a lot of dumbass adults. Like, I always pair back to it's parenting. Like, there's certain things you're just not going to let your kid do for their best interests. Like, regardless of whatever they want to change their gender, which is mind-boggling. Like at 10 years old that you come up that thought. But anything, like, I don't want to go to school today. Well, too bad. You're going to school today. Right. This is for your bet. You're going to thank me later on, or whatever it might be. But like this whole adult thing, like the fact that government is so involved in like other agencies or whatever it might be, it's like this comes down to under your roof, like with your kid, a 10-year-old kid, a 9-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Like
it's truly personal responsibility. But yeah, at the end of the day, they will reap the negative consequences themselves. Like if you had a child and you wanted to have grandchildren and you did this to that child, like you kind of eliminated that option. So like, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like the consequences will come. It's just a matter of like, you don't see that this could be problematic.
That's what I mean. If it's like, let's just change the topic to like, kids all want to get face tattoos. Okay, you're going to let your 11-year-old go get a thing that's going to be on their face most likely for the rest of their life unless it takes like extreme surgery to undo it. You're going to say no. Like, that's what I don't get.
Well, I don't think that – I think that there's a much higher level of acceptance. And I'm sure, like, let's just say, like, one of my kids came to me and said that they're the opposite sex. it probably is an insanely difficult conversation to have. Number one, like number two, you also don't want to like make what you would consider the wrong decision, because there probably there's like a percentage of these people that maybe they would be happier the other way. But it's also like, then you have to be like, well, all right, do I let them grow up as a boy? Like, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. I don't necessarily agree with my thought process, but like, all right, say it's a girl. It's like, all right, do I let her develop all the way, or do I like pause it now and do all this other stuff and give her testosterone and do all these things? What if she changes her mind?
Well, that's what I mean.
Like,
it's delicate.
But I could make the other argument where I'd be like, well, I say she's 28 and she lived as a boy the whole time and she's really happy, and like I didn't do it back then. Like, I get that there is an argument. I don't think it's a very good one, but I get that there is an argument to the other side.
I just think you shouldn't do the irreversible changes until a certain age, right? I think most.
older.
Well, I would hope most people could agree with that. It's like, whatever I don't give
Pick
a shit.
a number.
Right,
Well,
21, 30. I understand.
It's got to be 18
your
at
brain,
least.
Yes, your brain isn't fully formed until you're 26. Let's
Right.
be honest. I mean, I was still an idiot at 26. Not
Right.
as big of an idiot as when I was even 18 or 21. So, but yeah, I think you just have to shield them from irreversible changes. But we won't go into this deep right now.
All right.
But it makes me think it's almost like another form by pushing this and letting kids change their gender. We're sterilizing people. It's almost like it's a form of, hold on, eugenics and, wait for it, population control.
Oh, I know it's what it is. You know who pushes this harder than anybody? George Soros. All right, let's get talking.
I think this is gonna be. It should be a whole nother episode that we could start. So we'll end this one, right? But we'll talk about it in another episode.
It's planned destruction.
Thanks for checking out this podcast. Please make sure to hit that thumbs up button before you go. If you want to watch us continue the conversation, then click on this video to your left next.